Do you know a child or teen with anxiety or depression? Do you struggle to understand how they feel? Are you looking for ways you can help them navigate their mental illness? Today, I have my daughter, Olivia Russell, on the podcast. She shares valuable insights into what it's like to be a child and teen with anxiety and depression. This episode will leave you with a greater understanding of OCD and other anxiety disorders and how to successfully navigate your way through the trenches of mental illness. Hello, this is the Untangling Anxiety Podcast. I'm your host, Betsy Russell. I am a mom of 4 children with OCD and other anxiety disorders, a wife of a husband with OCD, and a former elementary school teacher. This podcast is about learning to untangle our thoughts and worries and then sharing this understanding with those we love. It's also going to be about the transformations that can occur when we invest our time and resources into making connections, being vulnerable, and ultimately finding healing for ourselves and our family. You can expect to hear from me each week. I will share with you actionable steps you can take to untangle your anxiety and live a more free and empowered life. I'll be bringing on guests, both people just like you and me, that walk the road of anxiety every day, as well as mindfulness, parenting, and mental health experts. I started this podcast because several years ago, I could have really used someone to connect with who understood what I was going through, something to remind me I wasn't alone during those days when my family was so lost in the labyrinth of anxiety. I hope you learned something, let go of the guilt you are carrying, and find more peace and resilience. Now take a deep breath. It's time to start untangling anxiety. Hey, this is Betsy. I'm so excited to introduce you to my amazing, strong, intuitive daughter, Olivia. She is 19 and is wise beyond her years. She's currently attending college and professional nail school. Most of Olivia's life, she remembers feeling anxious and depressed. She learned early how to mask her feelings and live a seemingly productive and normal life. Things began to change during junior high and high school. Olivia shares her perspective, what she's learned, what she hopes others will be able to do differently, and valuable insights into how we can help the teens we love navigate mental illness. This episode will leave you with a greater understanding of OCD and other anxiety disorders and how to successfully navigate your way through the trenches of mental illness. Let's get started. I'm so excited to introduce you to Olivia. Okay. Hey.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Okay, this is my daughter, Olivia, and
Hello.
I'm super excited to be talking with her today and just to be able to share her experiences and I don't know, just have a little discussion. So,
Yeah.
Olivia, will you start off? I know lots and lots and lots about you, but can
hmm
you kind of just give a little synopsis of Olivia?
Yeah, for sure. So I am 19. I will be 20 in November, which is really weird. Let's see. Well, I'm not gonna say where I live. Never mind. Um, I go to school at UVU. I'm just doing online classes right now because I'm gonna go do nail school in Provo. It starts next month, about 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, and yeah, that's me.
Okay. And we'll talk kind of a little bit more about some of that stuff.
Yeah.
Um, I think, obviously one of the reasons that I wanted you to kind of be my first interview for the podcast was just because of your journey.
hmm
And I love your perspective and just kind of the trajectory of your life because of the experiences you've had. So I'm excited to kind of share those with everybody. So can you kind of start by telling us about kind of your anxiety, OCD, just your mental health journey? And
Yeah.
kind of maybe I'll interrupt you or something as you go, and we can kind of delve into some
Uh-huh.
things deeper.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that like ever since I was little, I was a very anxious little girl. I bet you can yeah, you'd agree with that. Um I was really good, but I was able to adapt with it. I was good at like avoiding things and um yeah, convincing people that I didn't need to do stuff. Um but it got to when I was like I started junior high and that was really hard for me and that's when it like my anxiety turned more into depression and so it was a lot harder to manage because it wasn't something I was used to. And so for probably like seventh and eighth and ninth grade, yeah, all of junior high, I kind of just hoped that it would get better and also didn't really want to talk about it with other people um a whole lot. And so I kind of just yeah, kept to myself and then in yeah, my sophomore year of high school, I talked to you and dad about my depression and just saying how it was really hard and I couldn't deal anymore. And so yeah, I started going to like a therapist, just talk therapy and doing taking medication. I went that was a whole other experience with
Mhm.
medication. So I tried three and the third one that I'm on. I've been on that one since and it's been good. Um but yeah, so I went to therapy, did that for most of high school and then my senior year, um my dad went to um, OCD therapy, so exposure therapy. And that's when, yeah, so you had us, all the kids do a intake because we kind of all had similar issues to dad. And I remember going into that and I was like, I don't really think I have OCD because I always saw dad as kind of like, and didn't really think that I had a lot of the same problems as him. And so when they told me that I did, and then they recommended me doing IOP, I was very upset because I thought that my siblings were worse than me and they weren't um, recommended to do that. And so, yeah, I did exposure therapy for 3 hours a day, 5 days a week for 11 weeks, I think. My senior year of high school is the first semester. And
Didn't did you start on the first day?
yes, I started on the
Yeah,
first day of my senior
first day
year.
of school. That was crazy.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And my teacher, I only ended up missing one class because I wasn't taking a ton of classes my senior year, but it was an AP class. But I remember talking to my teacher. She was really great about it. She's like, yeah, you can just leave when you need to. If you need extra time on stuff, come talk to me. Um, so that was really great. I would just get up and leave. And that was an exposure itself because I'd be there for probably like 20 minutes and then I'd be gone. Um, but yeah, so then finished that and I've been like a completely different person since then. Um, I did struggle a lot, or yeah, not maybe not as much, but quite a bit, like my first semester of college with my mental health a little bit. It was just a lot different and a big transition. And I didn't have any of my friends from home up with me, so I made some good friends, um, but it wasn't just what I was used to. So I had, yeah, just had to learn how to, what was, yeah, good self-care, I guess. I heard that's
Mhm.
the word.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so and now I'm here and that's my mental health journey, kind of a long one. It will last for the rest of my life.
Okay, so let's go back a little bit. So I
Okay.
kind of want to touch on just several different things that you talked about in there. So first of all, like, because I think those that are listening are going to come from many different perspectives, but I know kind of the two main perspectives are someone who is struggling themselves with
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, and then also those that support
Mm-hmm.
others with anxiety. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, and actually, I don't know if I know overly specifically the answer to this question. So this one is
Mm-hmm.
interesting to me. I've never totally thought about it. So in junior high, because you said that was kind of like where things started to really affect your life. Like up until that point, you had made a lot of like accommodations and
Mm-hmm.
you've done a lot of things to kind of just to survive
Yeah.
and really to kind of keep it hidden a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But junior high things started to kind of surface. So can you elaborate and like talk a little bit more about like what did it look like for
Um,
you?
what do you
So
mean exactly?
like what were some of the things that, if you can answer this question, like that you were doing, like what would have been signs for me as a parent, or
Mm-hmm.
what sorts of things do you think um
Yeah. Okay.
mhm,
Yeah, that makes sense. So I I think one thing for me was, I mean, I think a lot of people go through like friend transitions between schools and stuff, but
mhm,
that was a big one for me. I didn't like my friend group from elementary school, and so I just decided I was gonna leave that. But I wouldn't say that was necessarily like a warning sign, but I think after that I was like, I'm done with friends and I don't want friends at all. And I remember saying that a lot. Um, like I don't know if I said it to get attention or if I kind of wanted like someone to say that I needed friends or something,
mhm,
you know? So I all through junior high I would say, "Oh, I don't want friends," and which like I guess is if that's really what you want, but like I did deep down because I was lonely. I probably could count on like one hand the amount of times I hung out with people outside of school those 3 years.
mhm.
So, yeah, that's a big one.
And so do you think you wish um that you possibly had been given more of an opportunity to go deeper and to say, yes, I do want more friends. I'm just terrified
hmm
at the
Yeah.
prospect of how to navigate that.
hmm Yeah, I think so. I think it would have been a little difficult at that age too for that conversation to have happened just
Yeah.
because I was a little more closed off. So I don't know if there's anything more that could have happened,
Mm-hmm.
but I think just acknowledging that is a great thing. Um Trying to think of another one. I
About like with your schoolwork.
Oh yeah.
Just
I kind of forgot about that. Yikes. Um so yeah, I would like there was multiple nights where I'd be staying up till like 3 a.m. or something doing homework because, and that was like not even necessary. Like my grades did not count towards my college applications, but I was so obsessive about them and just I was so anxious. And like if I started like something, it was like I was gonna finish it that night and I couldn't um even like consider the idea of doing it another time. So, yeah, and I would like email my teachers all the time about asking them if there's anything more I could do to improve my grade, even though it was fine and I didn't need to improve it. Like I'd email them after I took a test and I didn't know the score yet, stuff like that.
And I don't think I knew that. I know that I've known that more recently, but definitely didn't
Yeah,
know that at the time.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that, but yeah, a lot of my stuff was a lot more, I guess, yeah, internal or
Hmm.
secretive where it was hard to notice.
Yeah. And do you think that, like, I've been thinking a lot about that lately, how timing um is kind of important
Yeah,
with
for
all of
sure.
this, that we as both, like, those that suffer with mental illness and those that are supporting, is there's
Hmm.
kind of this really tricky balance of encouraging and inviting, um like, to step into kind of a new way of thinking, but also being patient with
Hmm.
when either yourself or those that you love are ready.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so what about, fast forward a little bit to high school, because you said that that was kind of when you realized, okay, this isn't getting better.
Hmm.
And in some ways, like, there were added pieces. Do you feel like in some ways that you've struggled a lot of your life with depression, or was that something that was introduced later on
I
in high
think
school?
looking back, I would say yes. I don't know if it was like in the moment I realized it. It was more of like, um, I think the anxiety kind of outweighed the depression
Mhm.
for a lot of it, and I knew how to handle that and avoid it a lot more than the depression. So when um I kind of got rid of a lot of anxious triggers in junior high, I kind of was like, ew. And it was heightened because, that's just like not a fun time in life anyway.
Yeah. So tell us about kind of that stepping into actually asking for help, because I know
Yeah.
that was crazy hard, and
Uh-huh. Yeah.
that's a
I
story.
remember talking to you and dad one time um about it. And I don't know if I like how I said it or if it was like very clear with what I said, but I do remember um both of you guys kind of brushing it off and saying, "Okay, well, let's give it time and then we'll see how you feel." And I think, yeah, for anyone listening who wants to help, if someone comes to you and says that they're struggling with depression, and there's a very good chance they've been struggling with it for a long time. So saying let's give it time
Not,
is not the answer they're looking for because they've given it time,
yeah.
and that's them saying there's nothing else I can do and I need your help. Um, so yeah. Um, so that happened, and I kind of felt um defeated a little bit,
Mhm.
unfortunately. So I did, but I didn't like give up. I was like, okay, I'll give it time. Maybe, since I've talked about it, it will be better. And it didn't really get better. So I remember talking to you guys again, and I was like, I can't do this. And
Mhm.
you're like, okay, I'll set up an appointment for you to meet with the doctor. And I was like, thank goodness. And that was a lot better. And yeah.
Yeah, so I think, and that process, like, just to um give people kind of insight. So we first
Hmm.
met with the pediatrician,
Hmm.
and with the pediatrician, that's who kind of will help you with medication. But I found with more than just one doctor that we've been to, or more than just one kid for this, that the doctor, and me, like, the first thing that they do say is therapy. It seems like before they even prescribe medication, is they want you to try
Yeah.
to try
Um,
therapy.
that's not what they did with me.
Did they do it
Um,
differently?
yeah, he said, I think because my scores were really bad,
Yes, that's
he
probably
gave me
right.
both.
Hmm.
He said, he put me on medication like immediately,
Hmm.
and then he was like, if you want to get better, then you need to
Yeah.
do therapy. He's like, this will help, but this will make it a lot better
Yeah.
too. So at
Yeah.
least that's how I
Okay.
remember it.
No, yeah. I pretty sure you remember better than I do. And that is, yeah, that's interesting and
Hmm.
insightful for sure. And like how important it is to be honest with those, what is it, the GAD-7 and there's a general anxiety and a
Yeah, depressive
depression.
scale. Yeah.
Yeah. Those that they are kind of standard now.
Yeah. I wish they would have been,
I know.
but
Yeah.
for me, yeah, I'm thankful. I remember doing that in front of you and you looking at it and
Yeah.
I think you like started crying because you just didn't realize how
Yeah.
hard,
Yeah.
like how much I was struggling because I mean, you can't really know. It's hard to tell.
Yeah. And just also for insight. So you, and we've talked about this a lot, but
Hmm.
you were kind of the catalyst for our whole family.
Hmm.
This whole story is like the beginning of the Russell family mental health journey. It started with Olivia, like she opened the door and kind of like was the first one to shine the light on it all and to say, hey, like this is not okay. Because yeah, from there on we were able to find a therapist that's become like our family therapist
Hmm.
that was already in place when her dad um kind of had his um like breakdown. And so it was really kind of groundbreaking. But I think in a lot of ways, well, I know it made it way harder. You had it way harder
Yeah.
than anyone else for that
Yeah,
very reason.
it was hard, yeah, having to yeah, just open a whole new can of worms that had kind of been, brushed under the rug
Yeah.
for years. But yeah, happy I did.
Yeah. And it was still like a total process and still is
Hmm.
today a process for us, like
Yeah.
to just everything. But I think just what you said was so powerful that if somebody comes to you saying, I'm struggling with this, they've already spent a lot of time
Hmm.
thinking about it on their own. And so it is time to act, not time to wait and process. If
Yeah.
you as a support person needs more time to process, great, but do
Yeah.
it fast because
Do it on your own time, maybe.
they need your support.
Yeah.
Okay, so medication too, that was also kind of a
Yes.
mildly horrific experience as well.
It kind of
And
was.
once again, you were groundbreaking. So we hadn't discovered later on, we figured out there are different tests that are done depending on what state you're in, where you can get a genetic test done where they swab the inside of your cheek
Hmm.
and then they can do a printout and tell you all of the medications and every medication, every class, and how effective it will be with your genetics. I mean, and this is like a general idea, right?
Hmm.
But it's still,
Yeah.
but we didn't have that
Yeah.
with you.
Yeah. Do you want me to
Yeah.
tell that? Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, so let's see. Yeah, so it was when I was a sophomore, and this was all before COVID.
Yep.
Um, like thankfully. Like that could have actually been so much worse. I didn't even think about that. It was like right before. Like it
Yeah.
was um like February probably. January, February.
Hmm.
Um um yeah, at least before like everything shut down. Anyway, So I was put on um Zoloft, which is a really common one that a lot of people take and it works for them. It did not work for me. I remember feeling like more anxious than I ever had felt in my entire life. Just like for no apparent reason, could not figure out what was going on. I remember I had a yoga class, and like that was my favorite class because I was able to relax, and I could not do it. And I remember texting you, and I was like, I feel like a shooter's gonna come in. Like that's how anxious I feel. And you drove me to school like a few days.
Mm-hmm.
And I would just like sit in the parking lot and like try to calm myself down, not having a panic attack. Um, and then I think, yeah, I was taking that one and then I was like, I think this is what the issue is. So I just stopped taking it. And so we went to the doctor again and he was like, okay, so we'll like wean you off of it. And I was like, I already stopped. And he was like, oh, okay, cool. And so then we
Which
started,
like isn't always the way to, that can
yes,
be
that can be
crazy
not
bad.
great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was lucky that that was fine, that
Mhm.
I did that. Anyway, so I was put on a new one that had worked really great for my dad. So we are like, okay,
Mhm.
probably a good chance that it would work for you, which is usually the case, but it didn't
Mhm.
really work for me. Um, I didn't feel like it did anything.
Mhm.
I just felt the same. And so then we did that test because my doctor was like, okay, like obviously you got some unique brain chemistry, so let's like look and see what's going on so we don't have to do this over and over again. And so I did that, and then I was put on the one that said, hey, this will be great for you. And here we are.
Hooray.
Yeah,
Yeah, it was a journey.
yes, for sure. But yeah,
And
all my other siblings, I think, or at least a few of them took it. And so did my dad, I think, like after I did it. And
the genetic. Yep.
yeah,
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
yeah,
It's been really nice. Like I said, it hasn't, there been a few where we're like,
yeah,
that, but overall, instead of having to like, yeah, try, and
yeah,
it's hard because you try medication and they're like, okay, let's try this for 2 to 4 weeks, right?
yeah.
Isn't it like four? Or yeah.
It's
And
a
I
good
mean,
amount of time.
somebody that is struggling with their mental health, that is like
Yeah,
eternal.
yeah.
So
It's definitely worth it to do those genetic tests,
yeah.
like 1,000,000,000%.
I will put some information like in our little show notes and stuff about that. Um, yeah. Okay, so all right, so we tackled kind of at that point, like you said, you kind of made um some accommodations or were doing some things in your life that kind of suppress the anxiety, and then the depression kind of builds up. You start with medication and going to a therapist and kind of doing talk therapy, that kind
Mm-hmm.
of like settled things. And really, like for the most part, before you went and had it's called an intake, the interview with the OCD and Anxiety Treatment Center, you
Mm-hmm.
kind of, I mean, I remember you were like, I'm fine, I'm
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah. I felt like I was doing like really great, and I feel like I was.
Mm-hmm.
Um I still think that. I think I would have been fine. But yeah, going definitely like made me realize how much like more I could experience life.
Yeah. So you were at a place where you wouldn't necessarily have a mental breakdown, like it wouldn't stop you from like succeeding in life,
Mm-hmm.
but like you said, this like your whole life has kind of been opened up to you
Yes.
because of it.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, what parts of kind of OCD? So you call it IOP, which is
intensive outpatient program.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and you said 5 days a week, 3 hours a day. So you'd leave school. It was from 2 to 5,
Mm-hmm.
Monday through Friday.
Yep.
So yeah, what kind of sticks out, comes up that about that experience that you'd want to share?
Um, well, yeah, just like I look at the person I was before and the person I was after, and especially considering because I think a lot of people that do go there are really struggling at the beginning
Mm-hmm.
mentally, and it's kind of like, okay, this is like kind of one step before like maybe like a mental hospital or an inpatient program.
Yeah.
Um, and so usually a lot of people that are there are really struggling, whereas I was doing perfectly fine. Like I was functioning. I wasn't, sad every day. I had a good group of friends. And so I was just like, this is so stupid. But just looking at who I was before and after, and seeing how much I had changed and um just how I had made so many of the mental illnesses that I did have kind of had overtaken my personality and who I was. I was just able to actually like get to know myself and be myself,
Mm-hmm.
which was really cool. Um, yeah, it felt like a weight was lifted off my shoulders that I didn't even know was there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Do you
yeah.
mind sharing with us what your diagnoses were? So we sat in that intake. So it was
Yeah.
like an hour
Yeah.
intake, and at the
Hmm.
end, the therapist,
Yeah.
or I don't know if it wasn't a therapist, I think it was a
I think
clinical
they
assistant.
no, I'm pretty sure they're therapists.
Were
Like
they?
you
It was
have
a
to have
therapist.
like a master's degree to like diagnose
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong about that. Anyway, so
You're right.
yeah, they gave me an OCD diagnosis, um, panic disorder, let's see, and social anxiety while I was there.
And what were your subsets of OCD? So OCD also
Um,
has all these little subsets.
yes. So I got those subsets once I started therapy. We
Okay.
talked about those. So my therapist was like, "Okay, so as I like went through, I got perfectionism, disgust, contamination, um trying to think. Those were like the big ones.
Yeah.
I definitely had like other ones that were issues, but not as much. Like I had a little bit of scrupulosity, but I just did like that stuff I just worked on at home instead of in therapy because it wasn't as big of a deal. Um so yeah, those two were the big ones.
Mm-hmm. So perfectionism, I think, is pretty well known, but
Hmm.
disgust, I think that
Yeah.
one is, I'd never heard of that one. And
Hmm.
I thought that was really interesting.
Yes. It was really interesting because I remember her asking, she's like, because I really hated um like touching things and I was just grossed out by like bodily fluids. Like I felt more so than most people.
Yeah. Well, and like
Um,
the whole thing was you would have like a physical
yes,
reaction.
reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so I remember her asking, she's like, "Well, are you like afraid of getting sick?" And I was like, "No," because like a lot of people you think of like OCD, you think of them washing their hands
Yeah.
excessively because they don't want to get sick. And she's like, "Okay, are you like just afraid of feeling like gross?" And I was like, "Yes, that's what it is." And I had like never had anybody like validate that feeling that it was
Yeah.
like normal, well, not normal, but like real
Yeah.
and okay that I felt that way. And I was like, "Wow." So that's what that one is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Super interesting. So,
it is.
and panic, that is
Hmm.
essentially panic disorder is having panic attacks. And then the fear of having panic
Having panic
attacks.
attacks. Yes, and avoiding situations that feel like a panic attack or some part of a panic attack, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
So what were some things you avoided? because
Yeah, so I avoided exercising. When I was little, I avoided roller coasters a
mhm,
lot. Just 'cause like the adrenaline rush.
mhm.
Yeah, just like honestly anything like that a normal little kid liked that was exciting, I did not like, and I would avoid it. So like, trying to think.
Even cold water and things like
Yeah,
that, right?
yeah.
Like the shocking feeling of getting in
Mm-hmm.
cold water would simulate
Yes.
a panic attack. Mhm. Super interesting. Um and so okay, so 11 weeks. That's a long
Yeah,
time.
it
It
was.
was a long time.
It was.
And it was kind of, yeah, that was that length of time in order to kind of go through each of those little subsets and
Mm-hmm.
created. So Olivia's talked about exposure therapy, and that's ERP. That's something that can be Googled, but it's essentially, and like what I talk about a lot is facing your fears. It's
Mm-hmm.
simulating the fears that we have most and purposefully putting ourselves in those situations
Mm-hmm.
in order to teach our brain that it really is not a threat.
Yep. Or that it maybe is a threat, but you can get through it.
Yes, the discomfort is real for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that you can, yeah, that's a good clarification.
Yes.
So what now? You said kind of a lot of the world is opened up to you. So tell us a little bit more about your future and kind of what your hopes are and thoughts are, and maybe how um, your treatment and kind of your journey has molded that
Yeah.
or been like inspired that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think about one thing like how I'm going to school to be a nail tech and how that involves like talking to people and socializing, and I
Mhm.
have diagnosed social anxiety, and it's like that wouldn't have ever been like a consideration without that. I work at a call center, like talking on the phone used to terrify me, and now I do it every day
Mhm.
for 5 hours. Um, so yeah, it just opened so many things up that I didn't know that I would really enjoy or need in my life. Um, and yeah, it sucked for those 11 weeks, but it was like it was worth it. And yeah, I know that I'm able to do hard things, and I can, yeah, like doing something that scares me now is more of like, oh, I have a lot more confidence in myself to be able to accomplish things that are difficult.
Awesome. I love it.
Thanks.
It's been wonderful to watch you.
Thank you.
So as we conclude, is
Mm-hmm.
there anything else? I know you've given a couple of like little tidbits and kind of feedback advice, but any kind of final thoughts that you have for those that suffer or those that are, supporting
Mm-hmm.
those that suffer?
Yeah. Um, hmm. Yeah, for those who want to help, just um, yeah, listen and also know that you won't be able to fix it right away.
Yeah.
That's really hard because I think, and also knowing that for someone who is suffering, that it's not going to go away right away, but that there's always help out there, even if you don't have someone, there's plenty of resources. And that even though it's terrible right now, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and you can, um, yeah, find joy in your life. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
Well, thank you. I think you are a wonderful example of all
Thank
of
you.
those things. So I'm
Thanks.
grateful for you coming and talking to me today and sharing your experience. I think it will help a lot of people. And
Hey,
I
of
love
course.
you a lot.
I love you too. Thanks for having me.
Okay.
All
We'll see you
right.
later.
All right. Love
Bye.
you.
Love you.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me, Betsy Russell, on the Untangling Anxiety podcast. I'm so glad you're here and honored that you've taken the time in your busy schedule to join me for honest conversations about anxiety. It brings me so much joy to shine the light on anxiety. Will you leave a rating and review? Just scroll down to the bottom of this episode, hit the 5-star, and write a little comment about how this has helped you. This helps my podcast get seen and help others. Also, I'd love to see what you're doing while you're listening to this podcast. So snap a selfie and tag me at Untangling Anxiety and post it on Instagram. We'll see you next week.